Hey everyone, I'm Liz and today I'm going to show you how to make yarn twist style hair for your crochet dolls. Some things you'll need for this tutorial are a crochet hook, I'm using a size E, a doll to add hair to, I'm using this mermaid doll, but you can find my basic doll tutorial or my curvy figure doll tutorial by clicking the link on the screen or check in the description below. To make my doll's hair, I'll be using Northern Lights by Loops and Threads Charisma, but you can use any bulky weight yarn you choose. I'll be using a wig cap that's a similar color to the hair I'll be making, so that the color of my doll's scalp won't show through the hairs. You don't need one if you want to. Making the wig cap is pretty much like making half a head and sewing it to the top of your doll's head. I used Blue Mint from Karen's Simply Soft to make my wig cap. You'll need scissors to cut your yarn, and you'll need something to wrap your yarn around to make sure the hairs are all the same size. I'll be using this piece of cardboard that I cut to the right length, but you could use a book or a DVD case or something like that. Just make sure it's about the same length as the hairs you want. If you want to, you can use a lighter to burn seal the tips of each strand to keep them from unraveling, or you could use a yarn needle to sew in the ends of each strand. That's what I'll be using. You'll also need a yarn needle to sew the wig cap to the head. So first I'm going to sew my wig cap to the doll's head. I'm going to put it over the doll's head like a beanie. And then I'm just going to sew it down. Now the wig cap is sewn down, I'm going to put my doll aside for now. Next I'm going to cut my yarn to the right length. So I'm just going to wrap my yarn all around my cardboard. How many times you wrap your yarn is going to depend on what size your doll is and how thick you want your hairs to be and what style. I'm just going to wrap my yarn 12 times for now. Alright, now that I've wrapped my yarn 12 times around my cardboard, I'm going to use my scissors. And I'm going to cut this side where I first started wrapping the yarn. I'm going to cut through each strand. And now I'm going to do that 2 more times so that I have a total of 36 strands. I want to have 3 groups of 12 strands in total. Now that I have my 36 strands cut, I'm going to finish the ends of each strand so that they don't unravel. There's a couple of ways to do this. The fastest and easiest way would be to take a lighter and to lightly melt the tip of each strand. So I've cut this extra strand here to show you how to do that. I'm not going to apply the flame directly to the strand, I'm just going to get it close for a few seconds until the fibers start to melt. But to avoid using fire to burn the tips, I'm going to sew in the ends instead. As you can see, I've already done these here. First of all, I've made my strands longer than what I want the finished hairs to be. I've left about 2 extra inches at each end. Now I'm going to take my strands and unravel the tips of those extra 2 inches on each side. Alright, now that the ends are unraveled, I'm going to take my yarn needle. I'm going to stick it into the spot just before where I unraveled, and I'm going to pull it partially through the end of my hair. Then I'm going to thread one of those individual threads of my strand onto my yarn needle. And then I'm going to pull my yarn needle through. Then I'm going to pull the tip of the strand. And now I'm going to do the same thing with the other strand. And pull through. I'm going to do this with the rest of the strands that I cut. This method will take a little longer, but it will look a lot cleaner and there won't be a hard melted end at the tips of each hair. Now I've finished sewing in all my ends for each strand. Since I used a variegated yarn, I'm just going to sort all of my strands by color. Next, I'm going to take my doll and I'm going to add 12 of my strands all around the wig cap. And I'm going to make sure to add a good amount of all of my colors. I'm going to start here in the middle of the forehead. I'm going to use my crochet hook to pull up a loop of my strands. Then I'm going to pull both ends of my strand through that loop. And then pull on the ends of my strand to tighten that loop. And now my first strand is installed. So I'm going to continue doing that all the way around using 11 more of my strands. Alright, I've gone all the way around the hairline. Now I'm going to add another 12 hairs the same way to the middle part of the head at the top. So once again, pull up a loop, then pull both ends through, and then tighten that loop. So I've finished adding my 12 strands to the middle part, and the whole head is covered up. You could stop here if you like, but I'm going to add the rest of my strands between the middle part and the hairline to add more volume to my doll's hair. And now my last row of hairs is complete. If you want, you could add more rows of hairs if you want a doll with bigger volume. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like, and if you want to see more tutorials like this in the future, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye!